All right, this is Arik Housley with another episode of Lessons in Loss, Love, and Resilience. Thanks for joining me today. I have a friend who I met through the National Speakers Association, Kristin, and most people know my story of losing our daughter, Elena, in a mass shooting in 2018, and how we've tried to find ways to have people understand lessons in loss, love, and resilience and how we can move forward in a positive way. And so being introduced to Kristin was really fun for me. I'm excited to have you on, Kristin. You have a little bit of a different story than a lot of them are about the grief of a loss of a loved one. But you have a really interesting story and the resilience that you've had in that. So can you introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about you?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me on the podcast. My name is Kristin Gustafson. I'm super excited to be here. I'm going to kind of get into my story a little bit, but this kind of all started when I decided to write a book. It's called The GPS Mindset. It's just navigating kind of those detours in life when we're just not expecting them. That's for sure. So, for me, as long as I can remember, I was actually an athlete. So at a young age, I picked up that tennis racket and just fell in love with being an athlete. I loved pushing myself. I loved the competitive part of it, just growing and being stronger each day. Tennis brought me a lot of success in high school. And then it also brought me, well, not basketball actually brought me 3 knee surgeries. So, yes. So
Casey.
yes, ACL, you gotta love it.
Yeah.
So for that, I did try to play college tennis. It lasted a very short amount of time because I had my 3rd knee surgery and decided to hang up the racket. And then I got into running and ran over 30 marathons, and then running led to triathlons. And that's where I just fell in love with training for the 3 different sports. So it's swimming, biking, and running. And plus, I always say that I was kind of the cool mom that did Ironmans.
Yeah.
My boys were very proud and looked up to me because I did that. So an Ironman, if people don't know, is a 2.4-mile swim. It's a 112-mile bike ride and a 26.2-mile marathon. I don't know how that sounds fun for some people, but at the time for me, it did. So it started all back when it was the summer of 2015. I had completed the Ironman Boulder race. And that summer, I was having one of the best like athletic years of my career. I placed into the top 10 at the Boulder, and then I qualified and competed at the Ironman World Championship in October of 2015. Which was one of my big dreams. Like since I can remember it, I don't know if anybody has watched the race like on TV, but it always gave me chills, brought tears to my eyes. And so it was definitely a dream come true. After I finish that race, it's always a recovery time. You take the next like few months off. But in December of 2015 I remember the specific like morning. I was on the treadmill and my husband came down and I was like, it's almost like my leg can't keep up with the rest of my body. And so that was in December. And by April of 2016, a few months later, I was just having trouble even walking around the block. Couldn't even, I mean, I was tripping, I was losing my balance. I had this sensation in my hands, in my feet, and the side of my face, not in pain, but just almost like where it feels like you just want to wake up, wake those parts up. So in 2016, I traded in all my training plans and my medals and those finish lines and traded in for spinal tabs and MRIs, a whole bunch of tests that I always say start with EMG, EMK, ECG, the list goes on, and like a lot of blood draws. So I was finally diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and dystonia. For multiple sclerosis and dystonia, how I explain it, this is a very short explanation of it, is that the communication from the brain to the body is, I always say, just a little bit messed up. So the signal from my brain down to my foot was weakened. So I had a lot of foot drop, and that's why I was falling. And then the dystonia is almost like the signal goes through, but it gets hijacked or haywired. And so my feet and my hands, they would tremble, they would tremble a lot, or they would get cramped or like twisted. So
Yeah.
that's it kind of it puts an end to the racing. I was fine swimming, but biking couldn't, change gears. And for running, it just with that foot drop, I was hurting myself more than I was helping myself at that point. But
Yeah.
I built, I mean, it sounds, this is the thing. It sounded silly to me that I built my identity around being an athlete. So when that kind of was like taken away, I had no direction. I mean, I kind of just went downhill. So it wasn't just physical, it was that emotional and mental. Like I didn't feel like I had a purpose anymore. I didn't have confidence. It was my self-worth was it all got traded. All my like how I say my grit, purpose, and strength was traded for depression and imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
And what I didn't realize for years as I was in this depression is that I never grieved my loss. And so this is where it gets tricky because, yes, we all grieve when somebody passes away. I mean, and that's where everybody focuses on, but you grieve when you lose part of yourself. And
Right.
if that is a dream, your identity, when the kids go to college, when you get a divorce, when you lose your job, I mean, you never want to focus on just one thing as your identity. On the other thing, when something is really important and you truly care for it, when you lose it and you don't grieve it,
Yeah.
it's just like you can't I try to that's what I always said. What athletes do is that they try to, go faster, go harder. They do a different training plan. And on the outside, for everyone, I was still Kristen. I was still smiling. I'm such a people pleaser, so I didn't want to put my thoughts, my negativity onto anyone. And it was just like exhausting
Yeah.
when doing that.
Yeah.
So I wish that somebody would have told me at the very beginning when I couldn't race that they're like, you need to take some time, not just, for your physical, going through all that, but for your mental strength of how you're going to get through this.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, I think I told you that I had a very close friend of mine
Hmm.
who did the Ironman Kona. He trained as a chair athlete because he had a spinal cord injury I think about 9 or 10 years ago,
Okay.
a couple years before Elena's passing. I've known him since Pepperdine. So he was all in, he was doing all this training and everything else. And then had to similarly go like, how do I
Do
go
I?
through this in a chair? While it would be extremely easy for somebody to just give up and
Hmm.
be at the world. Instead, he chose to kind of go back at it. And he's now met a partner in life with her that she does like half Ironmans and stuff too.
Okay.
Like they're crazy. So they travel all of the time
Oh,
doing it
Lord.
together, which is pretty cool. But so he made Kona and got, I believe the chain came off the bike because, he has the different chairs that he uses for stage. So the running, he actually is doing like a regular
Right.
chair. The cycling, he's doing it this way, and then the swimming, he's swimming, right? And I think that they put something where his legs can like at least float behind him
Well,
or fall. And so he didn't qualify because the chain came off and he missed it by like a minute or so. So he wasn't able to complete it, which was super frustrating, especially as hard as like he's already
oh, right.
working
Right.
so hard at doing something that's so much more difficult. I tell people a lot, I'm like, look, we don't have to rate our grief. You know,
Hmm.
losing their dog is losing their dog, but maybe it was their father's dog. Maybe that's who they were closest to, was this animal that it's so is it the same? No, it's not the same. It's never the same. And so for you to have to turn and look at your life in this fashion and kind of
Hmm.
it is absolutely grief, and it's not really seen in that way, right?
Right. No.
But you've since have had the resilience to find ways to do other, I would assume. So are you doing other activities now, or is it all on your speaking, or what do you do now that pushes you through to build that resilience? And how, as a lifetime athlete, what are you doing now, right?
I mean, now it's all about this is so I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and dystonia, and I can say I feel much healthier, both mentally and physically. I do now than I did before. And a lot of times people don't believe me, but having that diagnosis just changed my life. Yes, I can't run anymore. That's still not. And I lift a lot. I can do the elliptical. I can bike indoors, not so much outdoors with the shifting of the gears, but I look at life so differently. So I really it really is like when I look at the grit, the purpose, and the strength, I was in such a bad spot. I always say that I my depression, I felt like I had a shovel and I was just digging a hole and I just wanted to keep on going deeper and deeper into it. And I had all this like, for the gratitude, I had so many fabulous people around me. I had a great job at that time that I truly loved, my husband, my kids. I couldn't see any of that, though. I was so fixated on the things that I couldn't control and that I couldn't do. And so when started to really kinda dive into, I need to change or I'm not gonna be around anymore. That's just how it was. I was at that point, and so when I turned around, at that time, felt like I hadn't accomplished anything. I feel like I have really strong grit. Like I completed 30 plus marathons. I have 2 kids. I worked full time. I did Ironmans. I know that I had grit, but at the time when I wasn't grieving and I wasn't dealing with that loss, I felt like I had nothing and that I completed nothing. So that's where kind of the GPS came into. Like the grit is reminding people that you've survived 100% of your worst days. And we forget that. We forget and it's the simplest things. It's the boring reps that you do day in and day out when no one's watching for the grit. It's as simple as you're really frustrated at your job, but you keep the lights on because you're the one that checks the dashboards and you're the ones that does the spreadsheets. So grit looks really different for everyone. For me right now, grit actually is working on the grit of gratitude because that's something that I did not have before. I didn't appreciate my family and my friends like I do now. Or I would get done with an Ironman and I would say, I should have gone faster instead of saying, I just exercised for 11 hours.
Well, and do you think, I mean, and this is just me asking, is do you think that that's the human ego, like going, I should have been better, I should have this, because you were trying to prove to yourself and to others that you could do more, that you could be better? Like, is it, in your opinion, is that ego based?
Yeah, I would say it's like the ego, and I have a type A personality. So it's just, I would expect more. I was never happy with it now. And I never learned from things also. That's like the other big thing is learning from this is that I would get done with a race and then bam, I was on to the next one. Or somebody loses their job and it's like they don't even look at what they learned from that job. They just look at, okay, I got to go to the next one and that's it. They never go and they kind of reflect. And so, yes, it's ego because of that type A personality, but also just going, I never had to do it.
Well, it's what you knew too, right? It was
Yes, it's what I knew.
and you also loved it, and like you got the endorphin release where you're going like, "Hey, this
Yes,
is
yes,
awesome. I love it." Right?
yes.
Like I wasn't saying when I say ego too, some people
I
think
know.
that's just the way our brains work, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I was telling somebody prior to losing Elena, when I was at work, I could see myself like where, because also a type A personality where I'm like, this
Right.
is how I'm doing it. If they didn't do it right, I was just jumping on people. And I look at it and I go like, gosh, is this the way I want to live? Like on my last day, how do I want it to be seen? And how do I want to be
Right.
recognized? And I realized like none of this stuff matters. The money
Matters.
doesn't matter. The material, whether I ran 6 seconds faster this time than last time, whether I did this,
Right.
you look at it and go like, hey, like, is this what our purpose is here? And that's
Right.
what I started to realize too. I mean, we know like every time I get off the phone with my son, my wife, my parents, it's like, okay, bye, I love you. And that was things
Mhm.
that didn't happen before. Hannah, yes, but the others, and now it's like, well, it might be the last time you say you
I'm
love them.
see
You don't
right,
know. So, so it's important to recognize those things too. So,
right. Right, and just trying to figure out your purpose is a big one, and that's where it gets tricky because it's like, "Oh, so my purpose was being an athlete?" No, but I spent so much time and I kinda intertwined purpose and identity with it, and purpose isn't just what you said, it's not about performance, it's not about promotions, it's not chasing finish lines, and for me, oh, this was the worst one is like the external praise that, like because I am such a people pleaser. Sometimes I'd be like, oh, I'm going towards my purpose because I'm pleasing others. And it's like, no, it's like you should look at your purpose when everything is stripped away from you and you're left with like your core values, your non negotiables, like the reason why you want to get up in the morning. I always like in the book, I always say like your purpose is your roadmap. It's your internal compass that like keeps you on course when the path is unclear. Because we're all going to have loss in some form of it. Like I said, if it's kids leaving, if it is death, if it is losing your job, I mean, the list goes on and on. And so always having kind of that purpose and, knowing that you have gotten through hard things and the gratitude. And then the last piece is, that strength, which for me, kind of feel like I'm good with the physical strength. I mean, that's my background. I have a master's in exercise science and exercise physiology. I didn't think of the mental strength before I got diagnosed. Like I could have been so much more successful in tennis, in basketball, in my work, in just life. It's sad that, like, a diagnosis had to make me realize that. It just is, but, I mean, and that's why I'm like, "Thank goodness I do realize it now." And because for me, I had really bad imposter syndrome, I don't know if it's that type A personality or I wasn't very nice to myself. And so for me, it is a daily struggle to still today working on that mental strength of like how I talk to myself and not being a disappointment, to myself or to the family. Like it is just a constant thing that I'm working on, but I'm super proud of like how far I have come from, the diagnosis, but even beforehand, because I didn't think of the mental strength at all.
yeah, I'm sure. Well, can you explain to I've heard the phrase imposter syndrome. You said it twice. What exactly is that?
Yeah. So
We have a general idea, but it's like I couldn't
yes.
explain it to somebody if they asked me.
Yes. So I call it the yap trap. That's what I call it. It yaps, it nags, and it criticizes, and it like plays like my mistakes on play all day long. So it's really where you feel like you are a fraud, that you're not good enough. So there's about 70% of the population at some point have imposter syndrome. So I could go and I could have a great workout and I always say the yap trap comes back and says, so I say, this is how I put it. I just had a really great workout. The yap trap, it says, why aren't your abs more defined? Or I just had a difficult but honest conversation with a coworker that needed to happen. But the yap trap tells me nobody likes me at work and I'm going to get let go. It's
Yeah.
always like kind of the negativity and the worst case scenario that happens with it. And so when in my conferences, that's something I'll be like, okay, I want you to think about what you said to yourself this morning. There are some people that are like, I said 10 negative things to myself. I got lines, I have stretch marks, I'm overweight, my hair isn't, like the list goes on of like how we like when you really sit down and how you treat yourself, because you would
Yeah.
never say those things to somebody else.
Right.
But we say it to ourselves all the time.
Well, and if you did say it to yourself, somebody else, like you're really a bad person. Like that's really not nice. It's funny that you said. So I was just at a conference with one of my mentors, John Gordon, and John.
Yes.
It was a power positive kind of day of positive leadership kind
Right.
of, and he at one point, one of the people that was presenting said, "I want you to write down three things that you see in yourself that are negative attributes."
Mhm.
And literally the guy sitting at my table, he's like fitness
Mhm.
instructor, works out like
Right.
professional athletes. I mean, this guy is just jacked. And I'm looking over at him going like, he obviously knows what he's doing in his fitness and his health and da da da. And his first thing is, am I really good enough to train these people?
Mhm.
I'm thinking to myself, like, are you serious? And he goes, I tell myself, he goes, and we were all, then you all talk about it at the table. And he's like, I tell myself, like, I ask myself that every day. And I've done it where, like where I go, like, why do people really want to hear my story?
Sorry.
Like what? It's to me, it's like, it's just my story.
Right.
But after I speak, people go like, wow, like your message really resonates. And I'm looking at them going like, really? Like, because to me, it's my normal, right?
Right.
Versus I wouldn't even know what it feels like to be diagnosed with cancer, with MS, or with any of these things. Gosh, how do you do that? Right. And people look at me and go, how do you get through knowing your
I
daughter, this
know.
happened? And I'm looking at it going like, well, I mean, you'd be surprised. Well, then they're looking at me going, well, you'd be surprised too.
Yeah.
So no, I appreciate you explaining that. I had heard it recently too, and then when you said it twice, I'm like, okay, I have to ask that, and that makes a lot of sense because we all question ourselves. And I'd say
Right.
I'd be willing to say when you said 70% of people have imposter syndrome at some
Mhm.
point, I'd say 100%. I mean,
Oh, yeah, for
there's
sure.
there's no way that doesn't we all at some point are questioning ourselves on what we're doing, and
Join.
I'd say almost daily,
Yeah.
like, because that's what we're trained to do. It's never good, and especially in the United States, right? It's never good enough, it's never big enough,
Right.
strong enough, fast enough, you name
Enough
it, that you turn and go like, "I want more, I need more,
and
I
more.
should be better," because this is what it looks like. I mean, this is what's sad about like eating disorders with specifically girls in the country. When you look at it and go like, they're seeing these now AI pictures and thinking that's what
Yeah.
it's to look like, except
Right.
we're not all built the same, right? We're just not. If I fit the weight that I should be based on it, I'd be like 50 pounds less. Now I need to lose some weight. 50 pounds less, I would be like emaciated just based on the fact that
Based
my
on.
physical
Right.
structure is I've got bigger shoulders and everything else that you look and go like, that doesn't make any sense versus somebody who's naturally in smaller stature.
Right.
And so I'm like, but then I still tell myself all the time, I should lose more weight. Like I should lose
Right.
more weight. And I look and go, but I feel better now than I've ever felt in my 51 years.
And the stories that we tell ourselves also, it's like we just make up these stories. Half the stories are so in my mind, I'll just give an example. If I'm gonna go speak, to the leadership team, let's say, and all of a sudden it's like the story gets out of control in people's minds. And it's like, what if? And then half the time those what ifs don't even happen. And so we just have this story and it's just we just have to like the biggest thing is that awareness piece to stop it
Yeah.
is if it is having a bracelet like I have my GPS bracelet right here because that's I have to like I said it's a daily struggle like I have to be like you have to be kind and then I think to myself would I say that to one of my like good friends or to somebody that we're speaking to in the audience? Never.
Yeah. And it's funny, so with Elena's Voice Foundation, we've recently partnered with the Shine Hope Company, and that's
Okay.
the Shine Hope Company basically helps set up the Hopeful Cities project around the country. So Napa is becoming the first hopeful city on the West Coast. And
Oh, exciting.
when she was on the podcast, and she said hopelessness and helplessness are the two biggest drivers for violence and suicide in our
Mm.
country. And she said, so if you can teach people those toolkit, like to do it, and
Mhm.
she referred to herself, she goes, I still have suicidal ideation at times.
Mhm.
Lost her brother and her father to who died by suicide. She had a failed attempt, I guess if that's what you would call it, but she attempted, and now she's an expert in the field of it. So she goes, I still have
Yeah.
things that come in my head, and then I have to ask myself, why am I thinking this? And she goes, and it was like, so and so said this to me, and that triggered me that like
Mhm.
think like I'm not good enough. I shouldn't be here. And she goes, and then she goes, once I can recognize it, then I'm fine. But I
Fine.
have to
Have to.
stop myself and recognize it. And so I say
Yes.
that in similarity
Right.
to exactly what we're doing every day. And
Mhm.
even for me getting in front of others, like I don't get nervous in front of others, which is funny because the last time I spoke, I was in front of a big group, And right before I spoke, a woman goes, "Oh my gosh, you're the speaker today." And I said, "Yeah." She says, "Oh, I signed up for the conference just for you." And whatever reason, I
Pressure.
I got nervous, like, "Oh my gosh, like, I have to perform like a what?" And, and then what was crazy was I get up, I'm lav mic'd up, like wireless mic'd up, and then I get
Mhm.
up there and it goes out like 30 seconds in. And so they've asked me not to do a PowerPoint, which is fine. I usually just
Fine.
put pictures anyway.
Yep.
I don't read from the PowerPoint.
Yep.
I
Me
can't
too.
stand those presentations. And then, but so I was like, okay, no PowerPoint. Now I've got this mic in my hand. I'm like, okay, let's do this. And so like it's one of those things and you look after and people were walking up going, "Thank you so much for what you
Right.
said. It really meant so much to me. It helps me process." And, like, I'm like, okay. And I'm still walking away going, "I wasn't good enough."
Yes.
I mean, it's just normal, right?
Right. Well,
So,
and especially what you said with like the AI images when I do my keynote, one of the things that we bring up is the highlight reel. So, I have this picture of, or I'm kind of the same with you for my PowerPoints. It's a lot of pictures, maybe a few words in there. So I have the highlight reel and it's actually my son and it's like him at the state tournament for basketball. It's all the wins. And so that's what we see is on social media is we see the highlight reel. And I say the reel is always like the version of success that is effortless because
yeah.
that's what you see. And so everybody sees that. And then the next one is, and I know it might be a little confusing because I don't have it up, but it's the real reel. And
Yeah.
that's where it's like pictures of him defeated, tears coming down, the 5 a.m. alarm clocks, like everything that you don't see because it's like not
Right.
Insta worthy or it's not social media worthy of it. I mean, so you say that person got promoted and you're like, they could have missed like kids events or dinner with their significant other it's or how I said the boring spreadsheets to keep the lights on like there that's where if you have here's the reel and here's the highlight reel and then the real and
Is
that's where you like transform. That's
yeah.
where it all happens. It's just unfortunate that we see the highlight reel and that gets the most comments, likes, and applause. So, just kind of what you were saying is that that's what everyone sees, and they feel like, oh, well, it's effortless. They're doing it. Why? I mean, but I'm not. And it's like there's so much more that goes into it.
Yeah.
You just see this little much on social media.
Well, it's hardly effortless, but because that's all they see, they think that it is.
Yeah.
I've always joked around as a small business owner too that people
Hmm.
say, "Oh, I'd love to own my own business and get paid to not work." And I look straight at them and I go, "Me too." You know,
Yeah, exactly.
I'd love to not work.
You're a speaker, you just work, like, a couple times a month, and it's like, do you know what goes on to try to get speaking events, the marketing, the promotions,
Phone calls,
promoting
yeah.
yeah, it is. They see just a little glimpse of it, and they miss the whole rest of the reel.
Yeah. So true. And I liked one of the things I wrote down you said earlier is that it's the purpose in life when all of a sudden it's when you start to look at life differently, right? When you start to
Mhm.
look at life and go like, because for me, I see the loss of Elena as I feel blessed in the time that we had with
Yeah,
her.
together.
While it's hard for me, like every time I go to a wedding,
Mhm.
especially people her age that are getting it's emotional for me. And
Right?
it's because they shouldn't be getting married. They deserve,
Mhm.
right? It's the fact that it's like, okay, like we don't get this and it hurts, like, right? But
Right.
at the same time, I'm so excited for them. But I refer to it a lot. I say, like, look, I have this beach ball and it's a lot more for me to hide it than to just
Mhm.
carry it, right? It doesn't weigh as much. It's a lot of energy for me to shove it underwater and pretend that it's not there. And so for you to try to pretend like, oh, everything's fine, I'm still doing Iron
Right.
Man. It's like, but now you're living a lie, right? Because you're not able to do that, right? And I say it a lot too, where I'm like, look, tough conversations are tough, but how many times have you ever like dreaded a conversation and you're like, I do not want to have this conversation.
Right.
I'm really nervous. I think it's going to go this. It's going to be this, just like you were saying, all the ifs. And then when you finally have it done, you're like, I'm glad it's over. Even whatever the outcome is, even if it's bad, you're now done stressing about it and you can just deal with the outcome
Right.
because you're already in the situation.
Yeah, right. And have you like, I mean, for me, like how I said, I constantly am working on the mental strength. Do you like if you go to a wedding, do you kind of have to talk yourself through that
Yeah.
because you know it's going to be hard?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's what people think is like, Kristen dealt with it, or you dealt with the loss of your daughter. And it's like, no, we're still dealing with it on a daily basis, but we're dealing with it in a healthy way instead of the negative. For me, it was like the imposter syndrome and the depression and the hiding. It's like now I'm dealing with it in a much, healthier way. Do you kind of feel the same?
Yeah, and I mean, similar to like somebody referred to me with grief and said it's like going to the gym. You go in and that first time you throw up 100
Mhm.
pounds on the bench press, it's hard.
Yeah,
And that second time you're like, oh, it's, like, and you over
right,
time you build up this extra strength. You still have to, you still have to lift weight, right? And um, for me now, like it still comes in waves, like where I will be there. Sometimes it's more emotional than others.
right.
The first one that I went to was a very close friend of ours, their daughter. So she was the first of like 7 cousins that they were all at a
Okay.
similar age range. And so, and it's in my book that I'm releasing next week that it talks about that just being the new
Excited.
hard. Yeah. And the chapter is called The New Hard, right? Like these are new hard
Hmm.
have at the same time I try to wrap my head around it, but again, I can either try to just pretend this isn't happening or it's just the new
Right.
hard. Right? And so I look at it and try to walk myself through it. I try to visualize before just to kind of like, here's what's going to happen. I think the more I go, it'll be a little bit easier each time. And I wouldn't not go. I think the difference is I'm now comfortable in my emotions to be like, hey, to be like, hey,
Right.
sorry. Because most of the people that I'm there like know me anyway, or
Right.
know our story. And I don't want it to be about me. I don't want them to look over and go like, oh my gosh, this poor Eric. Like, no, it's okay. Like I'm fine.
Fine.
It's emotional right now. I just need a
Just
minute.
emotional. Right. Yeah. And I mean, I feel like it's so many of us try to compress or depress those feelings. I mean, there was jealousy when I couldn't race and others were racing. And it's like, okay, I had to deal with that. I didn't deal with anything. Like I said, I try to outtrain any type of grief and if it's jealousy or sadness, it's like you have to deal with it in a healthy
Yeah.
way. Otherwise, you're not going to move forward on that path.
Well, and I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with John Gordon and his stuff, but I like The Internet Bus is a great book. It's so simple, but it's so true of just,
Right.
that positive mindset versus like
Yes.
we went through something called post-traumatic growth, like, so
Mhm.
familiar with it. And so, but in our scenario, we look at it and go, gosh, I can sit back and feel sorry for myself of what we
Right.
lost, which was a lot. Don't get me wrong. It's bearable, but it's painful. And at the same time, I also can look at this and go like, but we were blessed with 18 years. We were
Years.
able to travel. We got to have a lot of fun times. So we try to talk about the fun moments,
Those.
try to laugh and say, tell stories about it. And
Mhm.
every year on her birthday, we have dark chocolate cake or something of sort, because she
Right.
was a dark chocolate
That's
fan.
what.
And we always talk about her, but it's not intention. People ask me all the time, is it intended to keep her memory and her name alive? And I
Right.
was not at all. Like for me, I don't need Kristen for you to go around and start telling everybody about Elena Housley because all
Right.
of a sudden it resonated, right? For me, she'll live with us forever. Like even though she's not here in person, she's still with us every day.
Mhm.
And so I think it's just a matter of understanding, like, I mean, I'd say for you, I'd look at it and go like, man, you did 30 marathons. I've never done one. I did a half marathon with my friend, and he had run up, like he was going to do like 30 by 30 or something like that, or whatever it was. And he had done all these half marathons. He'd done some fulls, but we were going to do it together in Huntington Beach. And Huntington Beach is a flat on the
Flat.
beach, you know,
Right.
so something comes up with Hannah, my wife, and we can't go, or I can't go. And I had trained for it. So I'm like, great. So then I didn't train for a while, and he goes, okay, we're going to do San Francisco. Well, if you've done San Francisco,
Totally different.
the last 4 miles is like uphill from the Golden Gate Bridge. And I'm convinced the Golden Gate Bridge is uphill 3/4 of the way one way and 3/4 of the way
Oh,
coming
yeah.
back. And so I'm like, wait a second, we do this and we finish, and then somehow, like, after, and he's a really, really close friend. And I said to him after, I was like, oh yeah, we ran the marathon. He goes, I don't know, I'd call it running, because somebody right before that had done those like ultras, he goes, set your heart rate at 140 and you can go all day long. Like, don't go above 140. So I slowed my pace down because I want to finish this thing. And so I did, except I slowed my pace down. So I
Yeah.
think the pace was something I won't even
know,
say on here. I did qualify as an
yeah.
official finisher.
And when you look at flat, that's what you were expecting, and this is a little
Yeah.
bit of a
I looked
challenge.
at him and I was like, seriously, that's what you signed us up for? He goes, well, it worked for timing. I was like, wow, thanks.
Well,
So yeah, we still joke around about, he's like, we didn't really run it. I was like, we ran it. Okay. I
yeah,
finished under the time to get my
it
13.1
counts.
sticker. Anyway, no, it's one of those, I think ultimately those things in life where we look at it and go like, man, we should be very proud of what we've done, whether we've done it one time or a million times, right? Because there's the other piece that's like that endorphin push that you look and go like, okay, I've done 30 marathons. I want to do another 5 now. Like, it's never enough, right?
Exactly.
And when you look at it, go like your family and everything else, it's like that time is all that matters, right?
Mhm.
Time of being with them and having the time to do it. So before we finish, so GPS mindset is, you have a book out for it?
Yes.
Or
Yes. Here, let me grab it real quick, just so everybody can kind of see it, the cover of it right here. Can give you the link also when I send you the information.
yeah, that's great. So,
Yeah.
and you do speaking to like corporate groups, or
Yeah, so business executives, and I've been doing a few women leadership, which I have
nice.
loved. Yes. So and then I do still speak to athletes. They have a little special place in my heart for sure. For sure with that. But yeah, and I kind of just wanted to finish. I mean, your story is so amazing, and I mean, the grief and the what you have gone through, and your family has, and you look at it of, yes, you had a great 18 years, but also what I look at it, and I hope I'm like this for others, is that you're paying it forward by paving the way for someone else, because someone else is going to have a loss like that. So you're creating their roadmap so the next person can like kind of find that direction a little bit faster than you did or that I did. So I hope that you know that you're influencing and you're helping like thousands of people.
No.
And I hope you're giving yourself credit
Yeah.
also, that your resilience and that you are paying it forward by going out and speaking and helping others, kind of get through their loss and, kind of keep on moving forward instead of, I always say, backseat driver, you're stuck when everybody else is taking the wheel and driving forward. You're doing it, your story and what you're doing for others is amazing. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah. I tell people all the time, it was like in the beginning, it was like 2 days after, and we were at a gun violence, like
Mhm.
a gun violence event that somebody had just put on, and this local foundation. And so we were there, and for whatever reason, I got the gumption to just get up there and speak. And I remember a year prior, a very dear friend of mine lost her husband, her son, her brother-in-law, and her nephew
Right.
in a DUI accident.
Right.
And I stood there going like, how in the world is she standing there speaking right now? And then
Mhm.
fast forward a year, it's me, right? And
Right.
so when I was first speaking, friends and family were like, oh, this was so great what you said. I really appreciate it. And it's friends and family. They're supposed to say that,
I
right?
say
It's like,
that.
"Well, you look great today, Eric. I
Yeah.
love your hair." And then it started to be perfect strangers that came up to
Mhm.
being, and things where I'm like, wow, like, I guess it is resonating. And
Right.
so I think the book is really going to land a lot. I'm actually finding now that I'm done with it, I'd like to start booking some additional speaking. And the hard part for me has been when I've reached out to universities and offered my
Mhm.
services, especially because they're going through. What I love about
Yeah.
universities is like they've got students that are going through losses like what you dealt with, like
Mhm.
grief and resilience that they have to deal with there. But then when I was calling them and I was like, "Oh, I speak on grief and resilience," and they're like, "Oh, we don't really need to talk about grief." And I go, "Well, you don't need to talk about grief until it's too late, number
Late.
one." And
Yes.
now I only use the term resilience, and then I give them
Mhm.
my story after, but it's one of those
Right.
things where everybody's like, "Oh, let's not talk about that now." And then when you
Right.
do, by the time you get them there, it's too late.
Right.
Like it's
Yeah,
one.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, we all kinda hope that we're on this straight path forward, that we're gonna have maybe a few bumps in the road it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when I always say hit that gravel road. And I mean, you can't expect, like, I couldn't predict or be like, oh, I'm going to get a chronic disease that is going to totally change the direction of my life. But it is, how you said, like a little bit of awareness of when things do happen, how can we get ahead of it and be prepared I mean, for my message, like using your internal GPS to like help you navigate those detours or because I mean, I firmly believe your attitude determines your direction in life.
Yeah, 100%.
And yeah, so I agree with you.
Well, and that's why I liked that the energy buses, it was like this guy who's just frustrated and everything's against him and everything's this and, like, and
Hmm.
it was like, "Hey, wait a second, like, it's not all against you." And then
You're
your attitude and your positive mindset, it
right.
is that. And it's really getting people to understand that piece. Like you make this as good as you want it to be based on,
Hmm.
and don't get me wrong, there's ups and downs. Like there's
Yeah, like you need to have your pity party and you need to go through all that. It's that what is going to be that next step to after the pity party so it doesn't continue with it for sure.
for sure. Well, Kristen Gustafson, thank you so much for joining me. I'll put all the links for your book and your online social handles and stuff in the bio. But I really appreciate the time. And if you're ever out
Appreciate it
Napa
too.
Valley way, let us know.
Yes, for sure. Thank you. Thanks everyone.